Autonomous weapons have no moral compass. They are neither good nor evil. They only pursue the goal for which they are programmed, and that goal is to kill. They do not discriminate between who they kill. The distinction between soldiers and civilians is not always clear. Autonomous machines are programmed to kill when in doubt.
Well, that's nothing new. People have always killed in war and committed war crimes.
But the vast majorities of soldiers do not want to kill and do not do so. This has been proven by studies in American soldiers in World War II, for example.
The results were consistently the same. Only 15 to 20% of the American riflemen in combat during World War II would fire at the enemy. Those who would not fire did not run or hide. In many cases, they were willing to risk great danger to rescue comrades, get ammunition, or run messages. But they simply would not fire their weapons at the enemy, even when faced with repeated waves of banzai charges.
That was probably just an isolated case.
The U.S. Air Force ran head-on into this problem when it discovered that during World War II, less than 1% of their fighter pilots accounted for 30 to 40% of all enemy aircraft destroyed in the air. Most fighter pilots never shot anyone down, or even tried to.
Okay, that may have been true of American soldiers, but surely the others must have fought.
Grossman uses American soldiers as an example because he's American, but in his book, On Killing, he shows that this problem has always been this way in all countries. It exists since the dawn of war.
We shall observe that throughout history, the majority of men on the battlefield would not attempt to kill the enemy, even to save their own lives or the lives of their friends. The media in our modern information society have done much to perpetuate the myth of easy killing, and have thereby become part of society's unspoken conspiracy of deception that glorifies killing and war.
But wars have always been brutal. Many people died in battles.
Looking at the history of warfare, it is clear that soldiers' reluctance to kill has always been the biggest problem. The entire development of warfare has been aimed at making killing easier and removing soldiers' inhibitions about it. In his book, Grossman very clearly explains how newer and more advanced weapons have been developed over the centuries to increase the distance between soldiers and their victims. Wars have been won with such long-range weapons. This is why long spears were used very early on by Greek hoplites, for example. In addition, archers were among the most effective units. They were eventually replaced by cannons, which still play an important role on the battlefield today. Soldiers operating a cannon cannot see the damage they are causing.
The further away you are from your enemy, the less you can see their pain.
Airplanes were the next step in development. For a pilot dropping bombs or firing missiles, the damage remains abstract. For miles away, it's difficult to make out anything clearly.
War becomes a video game.
The second important means of getting people to kill is discipline and unconditional obedience. That's why officers were introduced. They give orders, which is not so difficult for them since they don't have to kill. And their soldiers who carry out these orders can feel free of responsibility because they aren't only following orders, they are forced to kill. Nevertheless, as Grossman shows, many soldiers do not follow orders, either shooting in a different direction or not shooting at all.
It is actually fortunate that not all soldiers kill. Otherwise, wars would be even worse.
This is why we are now entering the next stage of warfare, automation. With the advent of automatic weapons, humans have been removed from the killing process as perpetrators. They are now only the victims.
Killing is now done by machines. However, drones are still operated by humans. Soldiers enter the target coordinates into the program to ensure the drone reaches its target.
The next generation of drones will be completely automated. The reason for this is that manually operating a drone involves constantly transmitting radio signals between the soldier and the drone. These signals reveal the location of both the drone and the soldier. In addition, drones can easily be electronically jammed, rendering them completely useless. Such completely automated drones are already being used in the war in Ukraine. They are not just a future scenario.
Now I have a better understanding of the drone wars. I didn't realize that soldiers often don't fire their weapons at all in war, or simply fire deliberately off target.
There's the myth of war, and then there's reality.
The media in our modern information society have done much to perpetuate the myth of easy killing, and have thereby become part of society's unspoken conspiracy of deception that glorifies killing and war.
Clausewitz discusses the problem in a more theoretical perspective. Above all, he recognized that the important role that information plays in war. This is because in war, information is often inaccurate or completely absent. For him, this is one of the main sources of friction. In his book on war, he therefore refers to the fog of war.
Finally, the great uncertainty of all information in war is a peculiar difficulty, because all action is carried out, as it were, in mere twilight, which, moreover, not infrequently, like fog or moonlight, gives things an exaggerated size, a grotesque appearance.
The term fog of war is well known, but what exactly does it have to do with the automation of weapons?
There are several reasons why weapons are becoming increasingly automated. One is that machines have no inhibition about killing. Another is that automation enables better information gathering during warfare. This reduces the fog of war. Automation enables all information to be centralized and shared between machines in real time.
But even computers cannot achieve perfection. It's not possible to install cameras and sensors everywhere.
Due to the lack of information, probability calculations are used. Taking the available information into account, targets with the highest probability of hitting the enemy are selected. Clausewitz also discussed probability in war, but sees this critically.
We can see from this how much the objective nature of war makes it a calculation of probability. Now, only one element is needed to turn it into a game. And this element is certainly not lacking. It is chance. There is no human activity that comes into contact with chance as constantly and as generally as war. But with chance, approximation, and, with it, luck play a major role in it.
In other words, whether you hit the enemy or innocent civilians is a matter of luck. There may be a higher probability that the victims are enemy soldiers, but it is also possible that they are innocent civilians.
What can be done about it?
Unfortunately, civilian casualties are accepted. Today they are referred to as collateral damage. We can already see what this looks like in today's wars. The Israeli army is currently the world's most technology advanced. The targets of its bombs in Gaza are calculated by AI based on probability.
There are no houses left.
The AI calculates the probability of enemy soldiers being in a building. First, the houses with the highest probability of containing Hamas fighters are bombed. Then, the probabilities from the destroyed buildings are distributed among the others, increasing their probability of harboring fighters. This process continues until all the houses have been destroyed. Only then is the probability of there being Hamas fighters at zero.
I'm not sure if wars can be solved like maths problems.
The IDF uses a range of software programs for this purpose. One of these is Gospel, a tool that generates lists of buildings or other structures to be targeted. Another program, Lavender, assigns ratings to individuals in Gaza based on their suspected affiliation with Palestinian armed groups. This effectively defines them as military targets. The program Where's Daddy purports to determine when a target is in a particular location, often their presumed family home, so they can be attacked there.
How can something like this happen? This is total war.
The Frenchman Léon Daudet was the first to mention it in 1918 in his book Guerre Totale. However, it was Nazi Germany that first waged total war. They even planned it. General von Ludendorff demanded total war in his pamphlet Der totale Krieg, 4 years before the Second World War. For him, total war is a war against people, foremost.
The destruction of the enemy forces has become the unquestioned basis of the conduct of war, attention to which is a first duty in the conduct of the total war. Politics must be broadened and politics must be changed. They must assume, like total war, a character of totality.
Even back then, data processing was carried out using punch cards, as computers had not yet been invented. The Jewish population was registered this way and was then deported and ultimately murdered. 6 million Jews died. Half of them were killed in an almost industrial manner using Cyclone B, poison gas, and added to this are the millions of victims in countries attacked by Germany.
Hopefully, something like this will never happen again.
When we look at military history as a whole, we can see a trend towards more anonymous killing, from spears and cannons to missiles. The final stage of this development is autonomous weapons. Advances in AI made these weapons a reality today.
Automation brings warfare into a whole new dimension.
The use of AI in warfare facilitates genocide. Humans don't have to do the killing, and an AI is unable to distinguish between civilians and soldiers. The data obtained on the battlefield is not precise enough for this purpose. AI is programmed to kill when in doubt. Doubt is nothing more than probability. However, probability always implies that it could be either soldiers or civilians. Therefore, civilian casualties are not only possible, but the result of the programming. The aim of warfare is to kill more enemy soldiers than civilians, but ultimately, everyone gets killed. It is only then that the probability of there being soldiers is zero.
I think it's time to turn the wheel of history around and abolish war once and for all.
Unfortunately, automation could make war more popular. If one country is so militarily superior to another that it can wage war using automated technology without being hit itself, there will be hardly any resistance in this country. The country doing the attacking won't experience it.
If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.